I've made over $1 million creating 3D characters for the last 10 years. The question is whether or not you can still do that today. I think you can, and in this video, I'm gonna show you how I make money doing 3D art and how maybe you can too. Okay, first up, I just wanna say, this is not a great way to make money, okay? Just off the top, doing 3D art is not like a get rich quick scheme, and it's not like, you know, having a drop shipping business or mining crypto or something. It's not like a cool electronic clever way to make money. All right, so if that's what you're into, you know, just this isn't for you. Really, this is just about for the love of the game. Okay, if you are like me and you're passionate about 3D art, or you're just really interested or fascinated, you have fun doing it, then the actual dream is to just find ways to be paid to do that so that we don't have to get a real job and we can keep 3D modeling. You know, that's the dream. If someone pays you to do what you want to do, you got it. Another kind of disclaimer is that I'm not rich, all right? I don't have like a bunch of money. I don't have $1 million in the bank account, but I do have a wife and 2 kids and a house in Los Angeles, and I can support everything. We have a nice life, you know, by doing 3D characters for games. You know, in my book, that is successful by my definition. I'm really happy with how things ended up, and I get to, you know, fund the life that I live doing 3D character modeling. So if you're into 3D modeling and you're trying to think of ways to make money, hopefully some of this info can help you. It takes years to get good enough to even be in the, you know, conversation of whether or not someone's going to pay you. So this is definitely not a beginner kind of thing, but maybe if you're into it and you think, hey, is there a future potentially? Hopefully this can kind of help answer that, but you know, the future's unpredictable. It always is. Okay, last disclaimer here. I'm going to show some numbers. I'm going to show some of my numbers and some other things that are like sensitive, or, you know, because I'm a working character artist in games, so I'm not going to show things that would make people feel uncomfortable, but the things I can show, I will. I'll show you enough to get you a glimpse of, you know, of the kind of money that I'm making, and I live in Los Angeles in the US for context, so this is all going to be in USD. This is not a braggy sort of thing. I'm not like trying to show off, just trying to share things in the spirit of transparency. You know, I think we should all know what people make, because then it helps us make decisions. And so hopefully this can help at least give you some ideas or some context in what kinds of money, maybe on average or maybe a little bit above average, you can make doing this sort of thing. All right. So I just want to share my personal experience with how I make money doing 3D art, so that hopefully you can either get an idea or inspiration or find ways that you can too. Okay, now with that out of the way, we're gonna jump in. I'm gonna give you 5 main ways that I've made money over the years doing 3D art. I'll talk about it a little bit, give you some more info, and then I'll kind of give you like an upsides and a downsides to these different things based on what I learned, to hopefully give you some more context. All right, jumping in. Number 1, the number 1 way to make money doing 3D art is landing a studio job. That's really all you need to know. That's the biggest thing you could land if you're trying to make a living doing this. So I just want to jump over here and show you, this is an actual job posting from my studio that I work at for a lead character artist, which is the role that I currently am. And if we scroll down here, you'll see that they have the salary. Here's the salary range listed. Again, in the spirit of transparency, the government agrees with me. They made, by law, at least in California here, you have to show, you know, what the salary range is, which is great, because it used to be in the dark and people would negotiate and they would just kind of bluff and everything. So this is much better. So I can show you this salary range. Now, if we just look at the low end here, which is $135,000 a year, you know, I've been doing this for 15 years. If you made that kind of money for like 8 or 9 years in a row, boom, that's $1 million. That's the title of this video right there. You know, again, it's not like hey, I've got $1 million and I'm rich, but can you have a comfortable living and support a family and everything? Yes, I did. All of my friends in the industry did and are doing that. You know, people have more kids than me. So definitely it's something that's possible right now. And in the future, I see that continuing. AI is kind of a variable. What does it mean? Nobody really knows. And that's going to grow and become more and more incorporated into what we do, I'm sure. But for the foreseeable future, for, you know, 5 to 10 years, I would say, there's going to be specialists needed. It's already kind of a limited job market compared to how many people, have the interest, but the people that get to the level that a studio would be willing to pay them, not only this, but like the burn rate it would cost to have someone in a studio, and you're paying the electricity bill, you're paying for all the software licenses, you're paying for the computers, you're paying for their insurance. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for one person. So it's just kind of the top tier of the skill, of the talent pool out there that would land this sort of job. Now I'll just talk a little bit about those upsides and downsides, kind of the pros and cons. It kind of goes without saying, right? But the main pros here is with a salary job, you have a good paycheck and it's consistent. You can be a little bit predictable, right? These projects go for multiple years, and you know where you're going, you know what you're doing, you clock in, you clock out, and typically they'll come with benefits like insurance or 401k. So it's the most, jobby job of all these things. But this sort of thing, it's as predictable as you can be as a professional artist, is being a studio artist. All right, so those are all the pros. Downside, one of the downsides is location. Now, with work from home since COVID, pandemic stuff, went much better. I work from home now, even though the studio's like 30, 40 miles away. So yeah, you can be remote now, but still you have to be like in country or in a country that the company has a business, has like business relations and a process for, because a bunch of legal things and tax things and stuff. So just because, studios do remote, it's not like, hey, I can be in Sri Lanka or something and work in New York. There's red tape, and it changes all the time for the different, countries and administrations and stuff. So you do have to be within the location zone, right? And some studios require you to go into the studio a couple of days out of the week or every day. So every studio is different, but there is a location variable there. Another sort of downside, you might say, or like one of the challenges to be able to land something like this, is the experience needed. Like I said, it's kind of the cream of the crop that would be considered for these jobs, because there aren't that many openings and there's a lot of people that want them. And again, as a company, you're paying a lot of money and you want, your bet to work out. This is like a multi-year thing. You're like, I want to bring someone in-house to help us finish this big project. Right now at my studio, there's going to be 4, 5 character artists at the studio. And so, I'm sure hundreds would want those jobs. So essentially it's like a high bar to clear. And another downside I would say is it can become a sort of job. All right. And I don't mean to say like, oh, woe is me. It's not, it's awesome. Way better than a real job. Right. But something people that don't really consider, or they don't think about, at least I didn't until I got into the studio jobs, is the majority of the people that are working in a studio on a project, on a game, since I'm a game artist, they aren't usually the people that would buy that game. I think at least growing up, right? I was like, I want to work on the games that I want to play, obviously, right? That's kind of the specific dream. But as things go, if someone's going to give you an awesome role on a really cool project, making art you want to make every day, you're going to jump at the chance. That doesn't mean that it's, perfectly aligned with what you're doing. So as a part of what you're doing, you're going to be asked to do things that you would normally do. And as an artist, that feels a little bit different, right? Someone says, do this, go left instead of right. And you're like, oh, what? And you're making a game that maybe you wouldn't buy, or, so it doesn't align with you perfect. And so you have to be professional about it. You have to think, okay, if this is for this kind of person, what could be cool? And it's a little bit more professional, more of a job than someone might think. And it's a long-term thing. So having relationships with people at the studio and communicating and, taking part in meetings and everything, that, it's kind of an office job. Maybe it's not a downside, but it's a reality of the situation to be factored in. Second way to make money that we should be talking about is freelancing. Sort of the opposite of an in-house studio artist is freelance artists. Freelance, you take contracts, you do odd jobs, you do weird things like that. Reaching out to people or being reached out to, and you're taking these short to long-term kind of variable contracts to do projects. You come on, you're like a hired gun. You come on, bam, 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 here's my cool 3D model, boom, and you're off to another thing. So here's a contract that I did, was to make Gal Gadot for a title sequence, and ended up getting used in different ways, but whatever, they paid me to make a 3D Gal Gadot. And I was like, that sounds like a cool thing. Let's do that. So this example, I don't do contracts that often, but this is an example of one. Someone hit me up and we did that. So some people can make a living doing this by jumping from contract to contract and kind of juggling it. You know, some people favor taking freelance jobs because it affords them a different kind of lifestyle that you wouldn't have doing the studio job. So like some upsides with the freelancing is that location doesn't matter now. You know, you can be anywhere. You don't have the same tax red tape and legality and stuff. You know, you're doing contracts. I have contractors working for me from all over the world. And the same goes with being a 3D artist. So you can, you know, take a contract for a couple weeks or a couple months and kind of be a digital nomad and go around the world. So people do that while you're in your 20s or something, right? You're just traveling the world, going from contract to contract and living at hostels and stuff. You know, you can do this sort of thing. The location doesn't matter. Another kind of upside to freelance compared to studio jobs is we don't have that high of a bar. There are contracts that have a high bar, right? But the skill range is much wider. There's going to be contracts at every level and they're going to pay accordingly. But, you know, if you're not that experienced, if you don't have shipped titles under your belt or you haven't worked on big projects or something like that, if you have a portfolio that is good enough to pique someone's interest that also is kind of has in a position to take a little bit of a risk, then you can find contracts at the lower levels, which I did to start too. I took contracts to make 3D characters for like slot machine games when you win and they come out and they're like, hey, you know, whatever. A digital blackjack dealer. You know, you take weird jobs. Really great artists aren't going to reply to their job postings and, you know, the really hot studios aren't going to get back to you. So you can find these like, you know, mutual beneficial contracts at lower levels. And it goes all the way up from there to like really high paying, awesome contracts with big companies. Another upside with freelancing is the variety. You know, you're working on different kinds of things. You're working on commercials, you're working on title sequences, movies, games, toys, you know, different styles and different subject matter. And that's fun. That can be cool, right? If you're into that. It also is a great way to level up really fast. Again, opposed to the studio jobs where you're doing the same thing for 3 or 4 years, you know, relatively the same thing. Freelancing's all over the place. That brings us to sort of the downsides of freelancing, which is it's all over the place. So it's a little bit more stressful, especially if you start to have like family and dependencies and stuff. You know, that can be kind of nerve-wracking unless you have a real solid system down and you have relationships with vendors and stuff that you've built over time. You don't really know, you can't plan multiple years in the future. You know, you got to get your next contracts lined up. So there's some like, you're kind of always under the gun. There's always a stress there. So it's definitely a downside with freelancing. The other thing is it's kind of a bummer for a lot of artists, like for me, to have to be more in charge and more on top of the business side of things. Because now you are in charge of reaching out and having relationships with people, making sure the contracts are okay, making sure you get paid, following up, making sure your taxes are paid, making sure you have insurance. You know, you got to do it all. There's not, you know, you don't just show up at a studio. So you gotta be kind of business person too. So where do you get these kind of jobs? You know, you'd have to do a lot of cold calling if you're at the lower levels. There are job boards, like you can see here on ArtStation. There's a bunch of job stuff, so you can see freelance and stuff. So, you know, there's just a lot of job postings on boards like this, public boards like on ArtStation or maybe even LinkedIn, Upwork. I've hired contractors on Upwork to help me with projects. So it's that sort of thing. And then if you put things out on social media, you can get like just cold DM'd by random stuff, although be wary of that. But that Gal Gadot project, I got hit up on Instagram. That's how I got that. I've also done like a model for like a skincare ad, and that was through Instagram. It can come from all over the place, but if it is your main source of revenue, then you got to be hustling, kind of reaching out a lot. That's going to be part of your job. All right. Third way that I make money doing 3D art and stuff is digital products. That's something that has a big range too. Some people, that can be their main source of income, their main like way of living. I just have a couple digital products. You can probably even see them below this video. I have them on some of the marketplaces, and it's stuff that I made as a part of what I do, and then I sell it to people that also do the same kind of art that I do. So I've got a skin detailing thing and a base mesh pack. Now I just want to speak a little bit on what I think is really useful and different about ArtStation. So my digital products are on a couple different things. On ArtStation, if you see, look, here's an ad for my product right here, because I'm not logged in. I'm not logged in, so it doesn't know that I'm me, right? So if someone just sees my artwork and you can see like, here, 22,000 people saw this page, they would see this ad. And if you click it, it clicks through and it takes them to the product. So that's what's awesome about ArtStation in particular. Okay, we'll talk about the other marketplaces. You can see what is trending. And trending means what people are clicking on ArtStation. So we got a lot of horny people over here, but that's okay. But trending is actually really useful for products. So like say I'm over here at the shop, but say like I just go to ArtStation to check out the artwork. Okay, so I'm just coming over here to check my trending artwork. People do this every day. Tens of thousands of people do this every day. Scrolling down, oh, look what we have here, trending stuff on the marketplace. So, sometimes you're lucky enough to have your product out there. If enough people are clicking on it, boom. And now everyone that went to ArtStation that day, they see it. So the fact that they surface it to people on the posts that's related to those posts, and also if you're trending, you're actually just showing up on the page when people are looking at art, that leads to a lot more sales. All right, so I'll show you some of my sales here. All right, so in ArtStation this year, and I guess we're about halfway through the year, you can see $11,200 there. And these products are old, so I did make more before. This is just, half the year so far. And this is passive income. That's the biggest pro from this, right? Is if you make digital products, it's kind of set it and forget it, unless it takes a lot of maintenance. But most of the time, right, you can just put them on these digital marketplaces, and as long as they're actually valuable, that's the thing. When you make a digital product, it has to actually be valuable to somebody. And mine's really niche, right? Like ZBrush, you're sculpting skin details in ZBrush. That's very niche. And then base meshes for your characters. That's a little bit more broad. And that's it. I use them in all my projects. People can use them in their projects. And that's it. And so thankfully people enjoy them and it's working out. And so I made these years ago and I still get paid for them. And that's great. And so someone could definitely make this sort of a side business and try to make more and more products. I want to mention to a couple other marketplaces. This is ArtStation. I think for art products, similar to mine, things that are in the entertainment art realm, brushes, 3D assets, things that people can use in their projects. I think ArtStation is great for that. Jumping over to Gumroad. Here's my Gumroad. You can see like of all time, which is, 10 years, made about 5,000. Still, not gonna complain. Pretty awesome, right? I just have like a couple products on there. But if you're gonna use something like Gumroad, it's on you to like market it and really put it out there, which is what ArtStation is doing for me, which is great. Another marketplace I want to shout out is the Unreal Engine marketplace. So just something to think about if you're a 3D artist that is trying to have like a side hustle or turn it into something where you can make a living. I think the Unreal Engine marketplace isn't getting its like respect yet, especially for people in the 3D modeling community. At least not everybody, but you can see there's some medieval ruins and stuff. People make characters. Here's the thing about the Unreal Engine marketplace and everything. You got to think it's a lot more broad than people think. People are using it to make games at the high level, but they're also using it to make indie games and also proof of concepts. Some studios just buy stuff to get pitches going. And then outside of the game industry, you have films like, Mad Max Fury Road used it for previs. Batman used it for actual on-screen stuff. The Star Wars shows, everything that uses a volume. A ton of movies are using it for their previs and their storyboards now. And that stuff, they just buy a bunch of assets. So if you put assets on the Unreal Engine marketplace that are actually, useful, if they actually work in the engine, you can put the rig and the animations on there and everything, then you can find kind of gaps. You can think about weird niche things, and there's going to be someone that might, use it down the line. Again, passive income. So it's another marketplace I just wanted to shout out for now into the future, because Unreal Engine just keeps growing and growing. All right, so that's selling digital products on marketplaces and stuff. Again, a good thing. Hard to make a full-on living out of it. The downside, I would say, is that it takes consistency to maintain. My products will dip right slowly over time, and you'd have to put out more products that are equally or more valuable to sustain an income and grow it. So it is hard as a main way of living. But it's a great side hustle. But there's levels to this, okay? If we go over here to cubebrush.com, here's a marketplace that Mark Burnett made, who was a character artist for games, and he said, sell products, I'll sell a marketplace. So he has a marketplace that has assets on it that you and I could sell on, and then his business obviously would take a little percentage. So that's next level stuff. But there's an example of someone who was a 3D character artist, was making a living and grew it in lots of different ways, and this is one of them, making his own, full-on website with lots of things and tutorials. So another marketplace made by other character artists. And yeah, again, game assets, brushes, and everything. So there you go. Even more levels to this. But yeah, both have similar, if not the same, kinds of assets and just more places to buy and sell these kind of things. So you can see we just talked about 5 different online marketplaces. So, putting out digital products that are useful for people, totally worth it. Like you see some of these, Dragon Scales, we have 40 reviews. How many people are going to leave a review? Like 10%? I mean, a lot of people are engaging and interacting and getting these things. And if you're someone who sells digital products, it just makes sense for you to put it on as many marketplaces as possible, right? That's like having your product in a lot of different stores. Makes sense. All right, 4th way to make money doing the 3D art thing is social media. I'm just going to say that as a bucket. There's a couple different ways you can make money in social media. Mainly, I would say the way is by sponsored posts or sponsored, integrations. I tried that in the earlier YouTube days. I integrated some Skillshare ads. Those are really common. And there's other companies that I'm sure you've seen. So it's a way to get paid a little bit for something that you were kind of planning on doing already. And then you can get kind of products, things like that. So that's one way to make money. Although there's not a lot of money in some of the brands unless you really do a nice collaboration and you get to the higher levels. But it is more than AdSense. This is how much money I made on my YouTube channel for the last 30 days from ads. So $140. Yeah, so all time from 2006 to 2024 from ads is $18,000. Pretty good. Again, I would consider this just passive income, like not the main thing. I was going to make videos anyways. And then with YouTube, you just turn ads on. So I will say ad revenue, not the best. I just had a couple videos pop off, and that's going to account for like 90% of that ad stuff, I'm sure. So, you have to get lots and lots of views to make money with ads. But there's also with social media, there's memberships and patronage and stuff like that, right? So I have a YouTube membership. You can see in the last 30 days, I made $1,000. So that's pretty good. And we have a cool little member community there. We also have a member community on Patreon. And so that's the same content is going on both. So I'm making these videos that are, if I do a project, I'll put like unedited, raw, real-time footage on there. We'll do monthly Q&As. People can ask any question they want. They can submit their work, and I'll do like paintovers and reviews and things like that. So, it's just a little bit more than the casual YouTube audience, but it's a way for them to pay a little bit for a little bit more, and a way for me to monetize and make that work, in my life too, where now we can have like a little kind of educational community or whatever you want to call it, where it's reciprocal. And that's an awesome thing that social media provides now. It's easy for both parties to like make and sell, and you can have really small niches like this, like the stuff we're talking about is so obscure to people that don't know anything about this stuff. I'm sure we get to just nerd out, and I love that about the memberships is I just know they're geeks like me, and we can just talk shop all day, and they like it and I like it, so it's great. So definitely the upsides with social media is it's passive. It's usually connected to stuff you'd be kind of already doing. Downsides are you got to be consistent, right? You got to keep putting stuff out there. I'm not the greatest at that, but if you're going to make a living doing that, you got to be consistent for sure, because that's now your main source of income. And if you don't get, if you're not careful, you could just turn into like content brain, where like now all of a sudden it's like what would get views and what would all that stuff. And that's something that I think all creators like struggle with. Once you start, getting monetized for views and engagement, it starts to shift. It starts to become a job, just like anything else, right? But I just kind of do what I want to do and put it up there. So I don't run that risk yet, but I definitely try and think of stuff that I like and that people would like, you know, not just doing it in a void. But yeah, for the people that make it their sole source of income, it can turn into a real hustle, real grind, right? Okay, so now the fifth way to make money doing 3D art and stuff is teaching it. That I feel like is the final boss. Teaching can pay well under the right circumstances, but it requires a lot of experience and knowledge and expertise, right? This is not something that people are going to do, or at least do that successfully in the first couple years of getting to this sort of hobby. You know, I'm 15 years plus into it, and I've been teaching for years, and I've been, you know, doing things on YouTube, and I've taught in real life classes. I've taught another online class. My parents were teachers. So it's not a casual thing you just dip into. And I would say it's another skill set. And I think I know some artists just aren't into that, you know, communicating with others, trying to, you know, formulate these kind of abstracts into digestible things, yada, yada. Teach, you know, teaching is different than arting. Okay, so it's not for everybody, and there's obviously a big barrier to entry, is that you kind of need to be an expert before you turn around and teach, and then it's a lot of effort to teach and everything. But that being said, I think it's great. The pros are obviously that it can be, you know, monetarily good for you, but also it can be very fulfilling. It's awesome to teach students and help them in their own journeys and projects and see them grow and be proud of their work and make awesome stuff and everything like that. So it's something that I don't get with my own art, and it's something that, you know, rounds out what I do. It's another angle, another source of joy that's related to this stuff. So my main thing that I teach now is character class. You can see characterclass.com. And yeah, so, you know, you can go there to learn more if you want about that class. This is the main thing I teach. This is my Ancient Aliens guy pose, you know? Hey, dude, fucking pyramids, man. So yeah, you can just read about it, whatever, all the things. But yeah, this class is about making real-time characters for games and portfolios and stuff, and trying to make, you know, banger stuff that people like and want to click on and hopefully can add to the portfolio, yada, yada. And so we've already run that once, and we're going to run it again, and it's been good. So I will show you a little bit of numbers related to this too. I won't get into all of it, but enough for you to see. So I highlighted February 19th to February 21st. So in 3 days, you can see I made $39,000 when I opened enrollment for the class the first time. And this is just the first 3 days, but you can get a peek in here. I thought it was interesting. You see on one day, I grossed almost $22,000. So that's obviously business-wise or money-wise the most I've ever made in one day by far, obviously. And also, you know, we're getting to a point just in these 3 days where my first 5 years as a studio artist, I made $50,000 a year. And, you know, now we're getting to a point where in a few days, we're almost matching that. So pretty cool just in terms of the journey and the career. Again, not something that everybody can do, but I think it's interesting for the people that, you know, are thinking about a long roadmap, are interested in teaching, that if you can teach someone something that is of value to them and you can do it in a way that helps them, then they'd be happy to pay you for it. You'd be happy to teach them, and you can become successful doing that. And that can be the main source of income for sure. So another couple examples, this made me think of this. Raf Grassetti has his own workshop class, and he's using Gumroad here. You can see I've purchased some of his classes. So these are like workshops that he recorded, and then he sells them later, and they're very affordable now. You can get in here and like learn some stuff. So some of it's like, you know, years old, you know, maybe it's not the most modern techniques now or whatever, but still obviously useful, still tons of useful info in there. And it's just awesome that artists of high caliber that are at jobs that people want are sharing information. That's what I hope everybody would do. And so finding those people and getting their information is something obviously people like me and probably you are interested in. Also makes me think of Yan Sculpts, who makes really cool YouTube videos. Also, he does Blender stuff. So if you're into Blender, modeling, sculpting, texturing and all that, rendering, you know, he's got his courses here, along with the videos he posts online. So these are affordable online classes you can just buy right now on demand. That's awesome. Also, you have mentorships, I'm just going to show you the Mentor Coalition. Or essentially, it's a website that people are coming together, like a group of mentors that have specialties. And so this one is a character artist. So just showing mentorships is another thing that is great for people that have skills where, you're not necessarily doing a class. It's more of like a meeting and a review and mentoring somebody. And then obviously if you're into learning stuff, then you could also look at this stuff. You might be a patron, you might be a mentee of someone like this. But seeking out people in the industry, like I know Glauco Longi had a mentorship going on for a little bit. I've done a mentorship for a small period of time. So you might be able to find professionals that are aligned with your career goals or your art aesthetic and interest, and they are actually sharing their info. That's the best sort of thing, because you can get, that one-on-one time. You can ask them a question, you can show them work, be like, how did you do this? How do you do this? And bam, you get the answer. That could be very successful for both parties. So that's just 5 ways that I made money. I'm sure there's way more than that, and there's more all the time. New ways of monetizing, like all this stuff wasn't always around. This is just looking back and looking at the current snapshot right now of kind of revenue streams, but there's more all the time. So I think it's important to be creative and open to like what's going on and how can we use some of the different tools and platforms and marketplaces and all this stuff that's changing all the time to enable us to monetize the things that we love doing all the time. And if you're someone that just from a skill set wise, you're not at a level where you can do this stuff for money or people aren't interested in paying you or whatever, that's fine. Again, you shouldn't be doing any of this for the money. If you're interested and you enjoy doing 3D art at all, just keep doing it. And if you continue to do it and you don't stop and you grow, you'll get better and better. And then you will get to a point at some point that people will want to pay you for your expertise that now you have. Now you have something of value to people. And that's what this is all about, is like trading value. So really, first and foremost, it's just, if you like doing 3D modeling, just do it. Do it for the joy of it. And later on down the line, if you get to the point where, hey, I've been doing this for years and I still enjoy doing it, and now I'm getting a little bit better. Okay, we can get a little bit more serious, be a little more structured in how we learn and all that stuff, and doing things to help ourselves grow, to become more marketable, and then trade it for things like this, and just be creative in ways to make money, so that hopefully you can just do this more and more and more if this is what you want to be doing with your time. All right, so hopefully there's some nugget in there that would help you with what you're doing or in the future, so that you can keep doing the things that you love to do and get paid doing it. All right, that's it for this one. Peace out.